Welcome to Beyond Words Presents. My name is Whitney Diffenderfer, and I am here with Don Joseph Goewey, the author of our newest upcoming book, The End of Stress. I have it right here, and I'm super excited about it because it says it's the end of stress, which I think everybody can relate to because we all have stress. And if you say you don't have stress, just wait until after we watch this, after we go through this webinar. You will find out you actually probably do. So Don, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much. It's wonderful to be here.
It's so great to have you back because we did have you on almost a year ago, but this time we're here for your new book, and one of the things that you're also bringing to us is a great PowerPoint where you can walk us through some of the steps of discovering how stressed are we and how do we deal with that, because I've taken moments where I'm like, wow, I'm really stressed, and the only thing that I know of to do on how to deal with that is just to start cutting things out of my life, which I've actually started to do recently, and it's having me cut things out that I kind of love, but I just can't handle it all. But so before we launch in, I just want to mention as well, if you want to join the conversation, please be sure to submit your questions using the Google Hangouts app. Please be sure to subscribe to us on YouTube, like us on Facebook, tweet us, just stay in touch so you can stay a part of the conversation, and also you can find out about upcoming shows as well. So Don, how do I not just start cutting things out of my life? How do I just have everything I want and not go crazy with stress?
Well, I think the first thing that is important to do is to saddle up to the idea that stress is happening in you far more than it's happening to you. It's not necessarily people or events that are causing you to stress out. It's the way that you relate to people and events. It's the thoughts, feelings, attitudes you have about people and events that are happening over the course of a day. And if you could change the way you came into relationship with those things, you could change stress. You could change it without removing very much from your life. A lot of the things that go on during the day in a work day, you usually don't have a choice about. You have to do them. You have to get through your to-do list. So the question is, your question is a good one. Can you still move in the direction of becoming more and more stress-free without anything on the outside necessarily changing, but a lot of things on the inside beginning to change? And that's where you have the control. The world will throw all kinds of things at you all day long, good things, bad things, and different things, and you don't have a lot of control over them. From what gets added to your to-do list, to what your kids do, to how the mood your husband or wife is going to be in at the end of the day, to the traffic patterns in the street, to the economy, to the weather. The list could go on forever, and all of those things we don't completely control. But the universe did not leave us powerless. They put us in control of one thing, and that's our attitude. And a shift in attitude can actually change your brain, to rewire it to make you relatively stress-free, and at the same time simultaneously creating the neurological condition that stimulates the growth of higher brain networks, so that you literally become smarter, happier, more optimistic, and you have a better chance of fulfilling the dreams that you want to fulfill.
So essentially what you're saying is that stress is keeping me from living a life that is fulfilled, is well, not necessarily keeping me, but it's not helping.
It's not helping. Yeah, it's thwarting you.
Yeah.
It's thwarting you. It's taking away from you the fluid, the emotional, and the social intelligence that you need to experience joy in your work, peace in your life, harmony in your relationships, to have more spring in your step. All of those basic things that lead to the good life and that put you in the position of succeeding at life, they're all thwarted by stress, and they're all thwarted by the biological processes that stress reaction cause, which is essentially dumping stress hormones into your blood system, which literally shrink higher brain function that produce all that intelligence you need to succeed, and actually expand the lower brain functions that make you stressed, that make you anxious, that make you pessimistic. Yeah. So you can actually change those biological processes by making a change in attitude, and it's called neuroplasticity. And so, as you change, neuroplasticity is simply as you change your experience over an extended period of time, anywhere from 4 to 8 weeks, your brain will change to make that new experience more automatic. And the one thing that controls your experience more than anything else is attitude. If you go through a change in attitude from being judgmental to being understanding with a human being, wouldn't your experience to that person change?
Absolutely.
Absolutely would change. Yeah. In dealing with your problems, if you move from an attitude of being optimistic about the outcome, from being pessimistic about the outcome to being optimistic, wouldn't your experience change? Well,
Hmm.
as you make these kinds of shifts in attitude, changing your experience, you're literally affecting a biological process that changes your brain. And now you're moving from a condition of being stressed, easily stressed, to not being stressed at all or rarely stressed. And, the end of stress is basically you make the correction quicker and quicker and quicker until the moment that the stressor used to come up and the reactions used to, get fired off, they like that. You're making the shift. You're making the mental shift that changes the way you come into relationship that doesn't activate that stress response system at the bottom of your brain.
Well, and before we go too much further, I just want to make sure I want to let people know the amazing work that you have already done up to this point, because I know that, I mean, you've done tons and tons of research into this particular topic, and that's how you've come up with this process that you have developed. And you've also worked with like Fortune 500 companies, you've worked with refugees, prisoners, and you have had like crazy success with this, right?
Yes, yes. Well, it's a testament to a process that literally works because it's neurologically based.
Mm-hmm.
And so I came from a long line of work in human potential, and how do we realize more and more of our potential? How do we access it? How do we put it to use every single day of our lives? And so I knew a number of the proven processes that move us in that direction
Mm-hmm.
to realizing more of our potential. And then about 10, 12 years ago, neuroscience began to discover this process called neuroplasticity, which actually changed our whole understanding of human potential. We're at the point now where we're the biological environment we call our body, that we call our brain, is
Mm-hmm.
is is literally directed by our mental state to the good or to the bad.
Mm-hmm.
And so there are definitely proven approaches that you can learn that strengthen your ability to be calmer, to be more creative, more optimistic as you go through a typical day with all of its ups and downs, with all of its stressors and problems, so that at the end of the day, the person coming through the door is got a lot more energy, got a lot more emotional stability, um, and not only succeeded at work during the day, but now is going to have successful interventions with his family, pulling his or her family together in the way, and having that kind of family experience that everybody wants to have,
Mm-hmm.
instead of one that stress seems to mess up.
So one of the things that I was really excited about when we talked earlier was getting to really get to the bottom of how stressed I actually am. Because I actually discovered that I am a person that when I experience stress in my brain, I say to myself, maybe not quite so consciously, but I kind of say to myself, okay, that's stressful, so let's just ignore it. And by ignoring it, it doesn't make it go away. It just kind of would tamp it down. And I know you have a great slideshow, and one of the first slides that you had that I peeked and I saw was the stress assessment test that you gave me. So I'd love to share that with people so they can see whether
Sure.
or not they are as stressed as I am.
So we're going to go to the slideshow. They're not going to see our faces anymore. And how's that? Is it up there?
Yes, there we go.
All right. And so there, excuse me, whoops, getting a little ahead of myself. Okay, there's a stress test. And so I invited you last week to take this test. And what we want to do is we want to, you can use this highlighter pen to go through and check off, like right here, if you wanted to do that, check off various um, uh, answers here that are on that are posed in this and on these 20 questions. So do you know where that highlighter pen is here at the bottom?
Um,
If you run your mouse down to the bottom, you'll see a pen come up.
Let me see. I don't think I can use it, but I will go through and I will let people know.
Well, you let me know as we go through these, and I'll
Sure.
check them off for you.
Perfect. So it's still pretty much the same as last week. Things have shifted a little bit, but we'll go through. So yeah, I definitely get less pleasure from activities that I used to enjoy. That is definitely accurate. Um, Simple things feel burdensome or difficult to accomplish. Yes. I have I don't have a lot of trouble making decisions. I'm pretty concrete about that, mostly because I feel like I'm so busy I have to make the decision quickly. Um, my memory and concentration are definitely not as good as they used to be. I always thought that was just because I was getting older. I just turned 30, but maybe it's not due to that.
That's not older.
Okay. Um, yeah, at times I feel overwhelmed and unable to control the important things in my life because I just got married and I got a new husband, and I just don't even know what to do with that sometimes.
Hmm.
I feel less confident about my ability to handle my personal problems. Um, I definitely lose track of little things, as I shared last week. I even left my shoes at home one day and came to work barefoot, which was just crazy. Luckily, my roommate was able to bring me my shoes. Um, I do have a shorter fuse these days. I don't tend to get angry. I just get frustrated. So definitely.
Kind of feuding inside, so to speak.
Very much. Yeah, I'm a very passive aggressive person, I'm discovering. I do worry over things I can't control sometimes. And I experience upsetting emotions, particularly that frustration that I was mentioning. At times, my agitation. No, I don't bang on my desk. I don't do that. It never comes out physically, really. I'm really good at keeping it in. I have become less social because it's easier, because then I don't have that on top of everything else I have to do. I definitely pick fights with my husband. It's bad. My interest in sex has decreased. I feel like I don't necessarily get sick more often than I think I should, because I just tell myself that I'm not going to get sick because I don't have time to get sick, and then I don't get sick, which is great. I have a lot of lower back pain, and I have had that for a very long time and hasn't moved. I don't eat more because right now I'm really focusing on my health. I don't know if you saw it, but 2 weeks ago we had James and Deborah Rouse on, and they gave me a great inspiration to be eating healthy and really paying attention to what I eat. So I'm good there. I I do experience fatigue pretty much every day, even on the weekends sometimes, which is horrible. And I don't necessarily have difficulty getting to sleep, but I really don't ever want to get out of bed. Again, even on the weekends, I'll want to stay in bed until like noon or something, even if the only thing I have to get up for is brunch with my friends. And I love brunch. Everybody loves brunch. But I'm not using alcohol or tobacco or other substances to relieve stress.
All right.
That's a lot of check marks.
Well, and let me give you some of the biology and neurology behind some of the things you checked. Getting less and less pleasure from activities that you used to enjoy. It's because these stress hormones that I was talking about a little bit ago, they change your brain chemistry. And there are certain processes that make us happy, that make us feel pleasure, that get interrupted. And as a result, we begin to get rather depressed, feel burdensome. Um, your memory and concentration. Stress hormones affect a part of the brain where working memory operates. It's called the hippocampus. And when stress hormones affect that, our memory just isn't as good. Um, Feel less and less confident. That's a drop in emotional intelligence that we experience because of this. Um, Becoming less social. That's a part of the fight, flight, or freeze. It's the flight part in which we withdraw. We withdraw from the world. We criticize our significant others. The greater the stress, the greater the likelihood we're going to do that. We're going to blame our partner for the ups and downs in the relationship, not understanding that it's stress that's really causing the problem in the relationship. The tension, headaches, the tight muscles, that's the freeze part of a stress reaction. Our body's constantly stiffing up, creating those conditions. And stress hormones, one of the stress hormones that we all know is called adrenaline. And it's hard to get a good night's sleep with adrenaline. And when you do finally get to sleep, you don't want to get up in the morning because you want to get the sleep that you missed. Alcohol, tobacco use, I know you didn't check that, but it's all related to stress. Mm-hmm. So what we ask people to do in our training is after they take this test is to read back the items that they checked as if they were a clinician reading test results. And then to come to their own conclusion, how high a stress level do you think this person has? And so, Whitney, how would you assess your level of stress given that narrative that this stress test gives you?
I would say I am either high to just like extremely stressed, given all of those things. And I really expected to check a whole lot less than that, but those are all things that I thought were attached to something else and not stress.
Yeah, and it's our brain can get wired for stress reactions. And the good news that goes along with the bad news is that they're usually overreactions. The stress shows that you can change that faulty wiring, and it starts with awareness about the signs and symptoms of stress. So this is really an important item, and what we have people do is we have them take it initially and then come back and take it a month later and come back and take it 2 months after that, so they can begin to see the progress that they're making as they're working with these tools that are changing their attitude, that's changing their experience, that's literally changing their brain. So let me go through and tell you some of the problems that we experience as a result of stress.
Sure.
And particularly when stress is medium to high.
Yeah. Well, before we move on, I just want to also mention to everybody watching that this stress assessment tool that Don just went through with me is actually right here in his book. And so everybody knows you can get Don's book at a great price for today. Today it's 35% off. So it's $9.99. You can get it on our website as usual. It's www.beyondword.com/Goewey. Goewey. Is that right, Don?
That's right.
Awesome. But you can get the book, and you can also get a short worksheet. It's a PDF that gives you instructions on how to do one of the exercises that I think Don might be talking about later in the webcast. So be sure to go and grab the book because that stress test is in there. And let me tell you, knowing is half the battle, as they say. Okay,
it's absolutely true. It's absolutely true. And one of the things that last week when we ran through this test the first time, you and I, Whitney, before you took the test, you said, well, I don't think that I have very much stress. And after you took the test, it was like a big wake-up call for you. And you could see all these signs and symptoms and how they're working their way into your day and how they're holding you back. Mm-hmm. So awareness is really important. We can't change something that we don't see and that we don't understand. And this is a way of beginning to understanding the problem that we have, and then we got to understand that the problem of stress is a serious problem.
Yeah.
Look here up at the screen. Chronic stress means, the stress response system's turned on nearly full time, dumping all those toxic stress hormones. They shrink higher brain networks, the networks that create intelligence. They switch your emotional set point to negative. That's why you're having problems in your relationships. They damage your cardiovascular system. They actually disable your chromosomes, which leads to premature aging, also produces abnormal cells that lead to cancer, impairs your immune system, kills brain cells, and it will eventually kill you if you don't do something about it. If you add up all of the stress-related illnesses, you have the number one cause of death in America. On the left side of the screen there, those are acute disorders. In other words, as your immune system, these stress hormones shut down your immune system. It's all a part of the fight or flight reaction. And because of your immune system's dampened, you end up with these minor but annoying illnesses. If you clear up your stress level, they'll go away. But what if you're having these stress reactions year in, year out for years? Well, they turn into chronic disorders, some of which are life-threatening. All the ones there that are starred are life-threatening. 80% of serious illness was preceded by a stressful year. So it's no joke. Stress also is hard on relationships, as you were telling us in your own experience, Whitney. The research of Benjamin Carney of UCLA, he's done some groundbreaking work on stress and relationships, and he found that the greater the stress, the more you and your spouse are going to argue and criticize and blame and withhold affection from one another. You're likely to judge the relationship negatively, blame your loved one for it, not realizing that stress is the problem. And if that wasn't bad enough, stress hormones lower your sex drive. One of the things that stress hormones do is they're shutting down these long-term systems, like the immune system, which takes 2 weeks to cure a cold, like the reproductive system, takes 9 months to gestate a child, like the growth system, takes 18 years to grow a human being. They shut all of those down to take the energy from them, to put them in the large muscles for flight or for fight or flight. But usually we're not up against a saber-toothed tiger. We're up against a computer that isn't working. We're up against a traffic jam, And so that's where it begins over a period of time to begin to lower your sex drive. Work, it creates those we-they divisions. And it also, in terms of your performance, research shows the greater the stress, the greater likelihood you're going to make bad decisions. Look at the screen. Risky alternatives, aggressive and escape behaviors are going to take over. You're going to be intolerant of ambiguity. Communication is going to tank. Creativity is going to tank. And stress diminishes our intelligence. Look at the screen. This is a scan on the left of a very smart brain of a person who's dynamically peaceful. They're calm. They're creative. They're optimistic in the way they approach problems. They're not stressed. Wow. And look at how lit up their brain is, as opposed to the scan on the right, that is diminished brain function caused by a chronic condition of stress. So, the difference between these two slides represents the loss of brain power, and not only in an individual, but in companies as well. So the point is, stress is serious. It's life-threatening serious if it goes on too long. And yet more than 80% of us are doing nothing about it. And we're treating it as if it's something that we'll someday do something about, but something which we never get to. And the fact of the matter is, we need to attend to it, starting today. Well, everybody here today should take this as a wake-up call to put this number one on their list of priorities.
Well, and I think part of it, too, is just the fact that we don't know how to deal with it. Short of, like I was speaking about in the very beginning, it's like the only way I know how to deal with stress is just by cutting stuff out of my life. And for a lot of people, that's just not an option. Like if you're a parent with 2 kids, and the kids have to go all over the place, you can't just not take your kids to school. Like you have to be able to do it all. So I would say, to some extent, people don't have the tools, which is what's so awesome about this book and about what you're presenting.
Yeah, the book is designed, it has proven tools that increase your capacity for a calmer, more creative, more optimistic life, as I've been saying here. If we have a problem with stress, look at this slide here. It has a lot to do with the way genetics and a painful past, wired your brain for a hyperactive stress response system. In some sense, you can say the devil made you do it. And you can actually change this faulty wiring. And the best place to start is learning to bust stressful, worried thinking. The greater part of what's causing stress reactions in people is their thought process. So let's start with worry. Let's take a look at worry. Here up on screen is what we worry about most, according to a survey from Psychology Today. And what we worry about changes as we grow older, of course. You look at that list, we're passing through the various stages of life. We worry about paying the bills, and then about being able to buy a house, later about putting the kids through college, and finally, having enough to set aside, for our retirement. And you can see the stages of life with the way we worry about money, with all these money worries here. We worry about jobs. We first about getting a good job, then keeping it, then advancing in our careers. We also worry if we're being appreciated for what we're contributing. We worry about our relationships, certainly. We worry if we'll find our soulmate. And then when we find who we think is our soulmate, we worry that if we made the right choice, if this actually was our soulmate. We worry about the safety and the happiness of our children and our grandkids, and we worry if we'll be liked, if we'll be loved by people who matter to us. All of those are churning inside of us. And worry actually relates back to shame. We worry that we're not good enough. We worry that we're not lovable enough. We worry when we make a mistake, that there's something wrong with us. All of that relates to a condition called shame.
Mm-hmm.
And then, of course, we worry about our health. We worry if we got a lump.
Yes.
We worry about that. If we hear about somebody else who's diagnosed with a serious illness, we worry for them. And then next, we're worrying about ourselves. We worry about a lot of stuff. 63% of Americans, that's nearly 2/3, 2 out of 3 of us, say that they're feeling more and more at risk in the world. Every year, feeling more and more at risk in the world.
Absolutely.
But it's mostly in our heads. One study found that 85% of what we worry about never happens. 85%. And they also found that the 15% that does happen, 79% of the time we handle the issue better than we expected. If we could learn not to worry, we wouldn't lose that higher brain function. We would be able to manage that long to-do list a lot better. There's a story I like to tell. It's about an elderly woman that a dear friend of mine was asked to drive to a doctor's appointment.
Mm-hmm.
And Martha, my friend, she was told that this woman is very elderly. She's somewhere in her 90s. And so when Martha met the woman, she was astonished to find that the woman looked much younger than somebody who fit the description of very elderly and in her 90s.
Mm-hmm.
She didn't look like that at all. And so Martha asked her, do you mind if I ask you how old you are? And sure enough, the woman said, 93. I'm 93 years old. And Martha said, do you mind me asking how you're able to look so young and have so much energy? And the woman said to her, she said, one point in her life, 30 years before, she made the decision to never worry about anything again. And she managed to learn how to do that, and she stuck to it. And she was living proof of what that meant to, not only in terms of her brain function and mental capacity that she was able to maintain, but the way she looked, her physical well-being. It all came together for her. And think of all the anxiety she spared herself, all the needless stress she avoided. And it showed on her face, in her attitude, in her clarity of mind. And, medical science would say that it also accounted for her longevity.
Mm-hmm.
It's possible to make this same choice, to let go of worry, and eventually move past it altogether. And as you do that, you literally rewire your brain to quiet that worry circuit, to quiet the stress response system.
So I know you say it's possible, but in my brain, that sounds like the most impossible thing you could ever put out there. Like I guess my brain and many others, I'm sure, like my brain is just automatically geared to worry. So how do we stop it?
You stop it first of all by catching it. And
Mm.
so there's a tool that helps you do that, and it's called the thought awareness tool. And it's a very simple tool, although initially people find it very difficult to use. But once they start using it, they stick with it because they experience they experience important changes nearly right away. And all you're asked to do is to be aware of all the worried, stress-provoking, anxiety-provoking thoughts that you're thinking over the course of a day. And so it's a matter of really being diligent about that. And it's really not adding anything to your to-do list.
Mhm.
You're just becoming mindful of when you think, oh, I'm going to fail at this, or when somebody says something to you and you find your mind saying, oh, this person doesn't like me, they're against me. And then all of those kinds of thoughts stimulate your stress response system. All of those thoughts, and if you give in to them, your brain begins to dump these stress hormones that create all the problems that I just walked everybody through.
So even thoughts like I don't know when I'm going to be able to get this done.
Exactly.
Okay.
Or you get into a traffic jam and I'm going to be late and everybody's going to judge me.
Yes.
That's usually what you're thinking. Or they're going to be mad at me.
Mm-hmm.
Those kinds of thoughts. And you need to be aware of them. You need to catch them. And you don't have to change them. You don't have to turn them into a better thought. You just need to catch them and become aware of them. And then you tell yourself, as you begin to notice these thoughts and first of all you watch the thought come up. I'm not going to get all this done. I'm going to fall behind. And then you notice the feeling that turns into, and then you notice the feeling of threat that becomes, and then you know how it's beginning to animate you. You know that adrenaline is beginning to come into your blood system. You notice all of that stuff, and what you're doing is you're mapping the pattern in a very simple kind of way. And then you tell yourself that this thought that I'm having, this reaction that I'm generating through my thoughts, it's in me. It's not necessarily in reality. 80%, you remember that research finding, 85% of what I worry about, of what most people worry about, never happens. And 79% of us handle the 15% that does happen, handle it just fine, which means something like 97% of the time there's nothing to worry about or to be anxious about. So you remember that, you tell yourself, this thought I'm having, this stressful thought, it's in me. It's not in reality.
Huh.
And then the next step beyond that is you practice not believing that thought. So you have a thought like, I'm going to fail at this.
Mm-hmm.
Recently I got invited to be on the Today Show, and at first I thought, oh, that's incredible, that's wonderful, I'm going to be on the Today Show. And then 2 seconds later I was going, oh my God, I'm going to be on the Today Show, I'm going to fail. I'm going to freeze. I'm going to make a fool of myself in front of 2 million people.
Absolutely.
Yes, exactly what went through my mind. And so that's the thought that you catch. And you tell yourself, look, at this thought's in me. And what if I don't believe that thought?
Mm.
And then what you're doing is you're moving to having a different experience. And so the different experience is, what does my experience become when I don't believe that thought?
Mm.
And you notice how your experience changes when you don't believe that thought. And you're going to get an argument from your ego. Your ego is going to step in and say, you better believe that thought because it's true. You really are in danger.
Mm-hmm.
You really are going to fail. And then you pull back and you tell your ego, just stand down for a moment. I just want to see what the experience would be like if I didn't believe, on the other side of that thought, if I didn't believe it.
Mm.
And what you begin to discover is that if you don't believe a worried, stress-provoking thought, it actually doesn't turn into stress. It doesn't turn into fear. It doesn't turn into pessimism. it actually just basically floats away, and you're
Hmm.
left with a calm, clear, open mind that's free to choose its own experience. And so you practice with this over the course of every day. And what happens is that the people begin to go through a pretty profound change over a period of about 2 weeks. Initially, what they experience is they're a little shocked at how many stress-provoking, worry thoughts that they're thinking through the course of the day. They're thinking them all day long, and they're
All the
catching them.
time.
And then they get the message that these thoughts really are in me. They're not in reality. No wonder I'm stressed. How could I not be stressed when I'm thinking in this kind of way? And then they begin to notice that those worried thoughts begin to calm down rather quickly. That what used to be a tragedy is now kind of a comedy. They're starting to laugh at them. And just the other day, I was coaching a pretty top level executive who reported that they were walking out to the parking lot in the car, and they had this out of the blue moment, spontaneous moment of joy when they looked around, and the sun was going down. The air was there was certain lovely quality in the air, and the world looked beautiful to this person. In fact, that was their thought: is God, life is beautiful.
Huh.
And she said that she hadn't had that experience, and she couldn't remember when.
Hmm.
Well, that's what happens when your stress-provoking thoughts aren't activating your stress response system and flooding you with stress hormones and thwarting you from having that natural experience of joy.
I have had those moments. Like it's been a while, I will say it, and I have had those moments, and I've been curious why they've gone away, why I don't have those spontaneous moments of joy. 'Cause it's such an awesome feeling. All of a sudden, it's just like the world is this magical place, and I've missed that.
Yeah, well, the problem is that stress and stress hormones darken that world.
Mm.
And then you begin to believe that this darkened world that you think you're living in is real, is really
Mhm.
the way the world is. It's in fact what it is just a projection of your way of thinking onto a screen, like a movie screen, and you're watching a movie that your thoughts projecting, and it's not your fault. It's not like you're wrong for doing it that way. As I said, our brain genetically gets wired for this hyperactive stress response system, and usually the reason that if we're genetically predisposed, it means our parents had it too. So we probably had a difficult childhood growing up in a household of stressed people,
Mhm.
and so the combination of the two get us wired for this. But this simple process right here is the beginning of rewiring it. And this is a foundation. This is really a foundation of making the change. Of course, there are other tools and processes that you work through and that I take you through in the book. The book has been designed to be like a workshop that walks you through week by week. It's not to be read from cover to cover over the weekend. It's to be worked with over 4 to 6 weeks, as 8 weeks, as you work through these tools, change your experience in this way, and gradually change your brain through that process called neuroplasticity.
So it's almost like you have a coach for you as you try to transform your worry-prone brain.
That's right, exactly.
That's fantastic.
And my business partner has set up a wonderful website in which you can download worksheets and audio files that walk you through these processes, and posters that you can hang on the wall to remind you of specific ideas and premises that this change that's moving towards the end of stress facilitates for you through the book. There, go ahead.
Well, and I just want to remind, I know I said it earlier, but I want to remind everybody that you do have the opportunity to get this book at a great discount. It's 35% off, and it is www.beyondword.com/Goewey, Goewey. I'm just kind of flipping through it right now, and I can think of at least 5 people that I want to give this to because they would be like me, like I was last week when I said, no, I'm not that stressed. And now I look and see it, the little indicators that you're kind of pointing to, and they have all of them.
Yeah. Most of us do.
Yeah.
Most of
Yeah.
us do. That's one of the wonderful things, when we go into corporations and work with people. What happens after a couple of weeks is people begin to relax because previously they thought they were the only person that were as stressed as stressed as they thought they were, and that everybody else was normal and they're abnormal. And what they find in the group is that everybody is struggling in this way, and everybody is looking for relief, and most of us has given up. And I think part of the reason that we've given up is for the last 4 decades, stress management and stress reduction programs have reigned supreme, and they've focused on changing stress related behaviors. And the problem with focusing on stress related behaviors is that those behaviors are hardwired into your brain. And what we've come to see, what neuroscience has come to find, is that if you're going to change a life of stress, you have to change a person's brain.
Hmm.
And that's where neuroplasticity comes in and enables us to do that. Because when you look at stress management programs over the last 40 years, in that period, the level of stress in America went up 30%. So it obviously didn't work. So this is what works. Is finding tools, proven tools, that actually work in the direction of changing your brain so that your autopilot isn't set to stress. It's
Hmm.
beginning to move in the direction of producing that calm, clear mind that gets you through the day in one piece.
Mm.
So let me give
Fantastic.
you one other tool,
Please.
and this is a tool that busts stressful thinking, um, stressful worry thinking at the point of inception. It's called the clear button.
Oh, and this is what your PDF is of, correct?
That's right.
Awesome.
So what you have we all have a 90-second window that we got to get through when we're in the throes of a stress reaction. We got 90 seconds before the brain's going to dump all those toxic stress hormones into our system. That usually means that we're going to take us an hour to recover from the impact that they're going to cause. But if you can get through the window in 90 seconds before your stressful thinking creates that effect, that you'll be okay. And the clear button helps you do that. So let me show you how it works.
Okay.
You imagine that there's a button at the center of your palm, and it correlates with an acupuncture point.
Oh.
And as you press it, you imagine it sends a signal to that part of your brain that sets off stress reactions and quiets it down. And so you're going to press that button, and as you press it, you're going to count to 3 and think of each number as a color. So let's do it together. Imagine that everybody out there listening, imagining that you've been thinking stressfully, you can feel that it's got you edgy and on the edge of maybe a stronger stress reaction, and you remember the clear button, and you press the clear button, and as you press it, you're going to go through this process with me. Take in a breath and count 1 and think red. Take a second breath, count 2, think blue. Take a third breath, count 3, and think green. And as you exhale, let your mind go blank, completely blank for a moment. And then as you come back into reality, allow yourself to be present right here, right now, and make the intention to be at peace as you face whatever stressor or problem that's in front of you. And this is a cure to a condition called catastrophic thinking. And let me tell you why it works. It's really interesting, the biology of why it works. The part of the brain that's in charge of stress reaction actually has the intelligence of a 2-year-old. And every parent knows that with a 2-year-old that's in the throes of a temper tantrum, you don't use logic or
No.
reason. What you do is you try to distract them with a toy or with a drink or something like that. Well, pressing the button, counting, seeing colors. It's all a form of distraction.
Hmm.
And what happens, the benefit of it is that as you create that distraction, your brain now has a chance to switch its autopilot from one that's going to stress you to one that's going to open up that higher brain where intelligence flows. And now you're going to be able to succeed at whatever you're doing, at work, at school, at home, whatever you're attempting. You're going to be more successful at it because you've circumvented that stress reaction, that pattern of stressing yourself out through your thoughts.
So it's as simple as that, just that short little exercise, and it boots you out of that stressful, well, what one might feel like an inevitable path toward a very stressful day or interaction.
Yes. You
Wow.
know, the very interesting thing about what creates a great brain that is relatively immune to lots of stress reactions are very simple interventions. And if you stop and you think about it, if you want, stress free is moving in the opposite direction of stressed out, isn't it?
Yes.
And so it follows that, one of the things about stress reactions, particularly the ones that we create in our heads, is that they come from a lot of complicated, complex thinking that multiplies the smallest matter until we're really upset about something. And the cure to that, or moving in the opposite direction, is doing something very simple that quiets us down for a moment until our higher faculties are restored, and now we can make the choice to move forward from that state of mind, from that mental attitude. And as we move forward from that mental attitude, we're moving forward in a way that gives us the best chance to succeed at whatever we're trying to succeed at.
So do you think part of the reason why we feel so stressed, why there's that overall increase in at least perception of being stressed, is because we have all of the technology and the stuff around that has our brains working? At least I feel like my brain is working so much faster.
Well, we're certainly bombarded with
Yeah.
lots of stimulus all day long, and we do, and in the process we do lose track of ourselves, and we do
Hmm.
lose track of the power of our own attitude, and we do lose track of the kind of we lose touch with the level of stressful thinking that's going on inside of our heads, and then we become a victim of circumstances. But as soon as we begin to make the change, moving in the opposite direction that we've been talking about here today, we actually begin to become larger than circumstances,
Mm.
and that's kind of a stress-free place. But the primary reason, the biological reason that we if we have a problem with stress, the reason for it is largely due to genetics and a painful past. We get wired for it. And
Hmm.
neuroscience used to believe 20 years ago that if you got wired for something, if you got wired for pessimism, for example, you're going to die whining because there's no way to change your brain. And then over the succeeding 20 years, study after study after study discovered that we can change our brain in a whole number of ways. They're actually doing experiments with neuroplasticity that's remapping the brain in blind people to use other parts of the brain to generate sight. That's how plastic our brain really is.
Wow.
And when it comes to remapping the brain to making us relatively stress-free, which means making us more joyful, more successful, happier in our lives, healthier in our lives, that it really boils down to making a shift from fear to peace. And look at the slide here. Stress is psychological fear. It's the largest part of it's mind-made. And peace, or that state of calm, in which our attitude becomes more positive, more creative, more optimistic, that turns out to be neurological power. So success is that mindset that locates that zone called inner peace, which is a very dynamic state. And succeeding is letting go of fear. And that's the formula.
It's very interesting to me because I think on some level, and maybe it's because I was raised in a stressed out household, but it always seemed to me that like if you were stressed and really really busy, then you were powerful. This is weird. And if you were peaceful and just kind of at ease and wandering around, then you were a will-o'-the-wisp. You were not getting things done. You were not, you weren't being powerful. Like it was the exact opposite of that.
Yeah, it's true. Most people think that. When oftentimes, when my partner and I work with executives, very busy, high-level executives, initially when we talk to them about being calmer, being more at peace as they face a situation, they say, "Oh, I'm going to lose my edge. I
Yeah.
need to be a warrior. I need to be this and that." Well, they're wrong, because basically what's happening is that they're creating stress reactions. It's creating a biochemical reaction within their brain and their body, in which they're actually losing brain power. They're losing the access to the intelligence that they need to succeed. So it's what leads to this kind of change is a dynamically peaceful kind of attitude, which really is kind of becoming a peaceful warrior, being a warrior for that, finding that center inside of yourself, in which, while everybody else is going crazy around you, or while all of the situations that you're facing are swirling like a storm, you're the one who locates the eye of the storm. You're the one who maintains that calm. And oftentimes, if you ask people to identify somebody in their lives who had a real impact on them, they talk about a teacher or a grandparent or a mentor who had this really quiet, calm way of being that enabled them to calm down and to see life through a completely different lens, and through a much better lens. And it's when we identify who that person was, who had that quality of being that was peaceful and calm, that really made a difference in the quality of how we experience them. When we locate that person, we begin to understand the value of that way of being.
Yeah, for me, the very first person that comes up for me is my grandmother. She's 86 now. And just like you were talking about the 93-year-old woman earlier, she looks like she's maybe 70, and she is continuing to be very active and out there and doing lots of things in the world. And I talk to her every morning, and in those conversations she brings me a lot of peace, and she'll tell me about her day, and there's no stress anywhere, no matter if she's going to the doctor to find out about a test that would freak me out. She's just like, meh, whatever.
Yes, exactly. She's at peace. She's
Very
at peace with
much.
she's at peace with herself, and that's a place of power.
Mm.
And when we find somebody in our lives that is living from that place, we recognize it right away,
Mm-hmm.
and we often point to it like, this is how I want to be. Well,
Yes.
this is how we're supposed to be, and this is how we can be. And the process of getting there is a lot simpler than most people might think. And the amount of time it takes to make the change, biologically, the amount of time it takes to make the change is a lot quicker than people think. 4 to 8 weeks.
That's
So
amazing.
there is no reason not to go for it. And but you've got to make this your number one priority in life.
Well, can you imagine? It's like if somebody were to purchase your book, get started right now, they would be able to make that change and go into the holidays not stressed.
Exactly.
That'd be crazy. Like crazy.
And of course, you begin to accrue benefit right away.
Mm.
You begin to calm down. You begin to have a wider perspective. You
Mm.
begin to notice there's more joy in your day.
Mm.
There's more peace in the way you interact with things. You're more successful in the way you go about things.
Mm.
Difficult problems become creative challenges.
Mm.
Everything begins to shift, and it's happening gradually over a period of time, and then you reach a point. People reach a point where they notice that it's happening rather automatically. That what used to be where stress would take over, they shift out of it quicker than
Wow.
they ever did before, and they begin to understand what's on the other side of the river. And that's a matter of choice. They choose. Then you're affecting the power of choice. You're choosing your own experience to bring about the kind of life that you want to have, and that's a life that Aristotle called the good life, which is a life of being well and doing well on your way to flourishing at whatever is most meaningful to you in your life.
Yeah. Well, and one thing that I've been hearing over and over that you've been saying is that peace does not equal low productivity, and stress does not equal high productivity. And I kind of said this in a different way earlier, but it's, to me, it seems opposed that peaceful people can still get a lot done. And then immediately I think of people in my life other than my grandmother. She does some stuff, but she's retired. But I think of other people in my life who have that kind of peaceful power to them, and they get a ton done, like enough that I don't understand how they do it in one day.
Without all the terrible wear and tear.
Exactly. They could work like 8 to 5 just like a normal person, but they get as much done if it was another person who was coming from that stress mentality could do in like working from 8 a.m. to 10 p.m. So there's like efficiency that comes with it too, because all that worry is gone.
And most people, you're right, have a hard time believing this. But the first part of the book, the first chapter in the book, I lay out all the science, and by the end of reading the science, you'll have enough information to convince you to go forward, because the science is very, very compelling, and it continues to be. The corroboration of the early findings just continues to present this very hopeful way of moving from a stressed life to a life that has a lot more joy, a lot more happiness, a lot more success in it.
Awesome.
So the science is there, and if you read the first chapter, you'll understand. Understand the foundation of what this is standing on, and then moving forward into the making the changes gradually, step by step, until your brain's autopilot changes. And one of the things that it also changes is your home life. What we're seeing here in America is that the home life of a lot of young people is pretty stressed. And parents today are really devoted to their kids. There's no question about that. But they're stressed at work, and they're taking it home. And the research shows that what's stressing the kids the most is how stressed their parents have become. And that can change, so that you use, for example, if you use the clear button over the course of a day, you'll be busting a lot of the stressful thinking that turns into stress reactions that tire you out, that drop your emotional intelligence into cranky, and you're much more likely to be the parent walking through the door at the end of the day that your children are hoping to see, and you'll have more energy for the family interactions, as opposed to just needing to plop down on the couch and watch TV. It's across the board change. You make the shift out of stress, and your life changes across the board.
That's phenomenal. I'm so excited. I want to take this book. The first person that popped into my mind, I want to take this book to my mom, because all through my growing up, she's a lawyer. She works very, very hard at what she does, and she's very passionate about what she does, and she's very stressed.
Yeah.
And I love hearing the passion in your voice about it, and knowing, and I'm sure you've seen so many people transform their lives, and the results, I'm sure, have been incredibly inspiring.
We go into some of the most stressful work environments in the country, in high-tech firms, in powerful law firms, in large government agencies. We go where people are really struggling with stress, and it's remarkable the change they make in just using these tools. People get an initial 40% drop in their stress level. Something like 94% of them expect that stress level to continue to decline as they master the tools, and to become better and better at using the tools. They report their creativity goes up, that their performance goes up. They can see the light at the end of the tunnel in terms of their health and their work-life balance. They see big improvements in their relationships with people at work, and even bigger improvements in their relations with people at home. And that's a testament to our brain, and that's a testament to these techniques, these proven techniques that can create the change in us. So there's every reason to be hopeful about making this change. Every reason.
Well, and it just sounds like stress is the key. Like if you can master your stress, then you can. It's almost like if you master your stress, you can master your life.
Exactly. If you go back 100 years ago, what we called, or 200 years ago, what we called stress then was the fall from grace, or it's what the Buddhists call suffering. Well, it's all the same thing. It's all fear-based, generating this stressful mind that that moves through a life of problems that have essentially been created from poor mental states produced by an hyperactive stress response system buried deep inside of our brain.
Wow. Well, Don, we are at our time, and I just, this is just fascinating. I'm so excited to read this book. I'm so excited to give this book to my mom. And I just wanted to say thank you so much for coming on. Thank you so much for preparing this awesome, the PowerPoint is fantastic. It's great to have the visuals and all of the statistics behind it, because it is something that I think a lot of people ignore. I think a lot of people just kind of let it go because that's just how life is, and that's how we have it. So thank you so much for being with us today.
Oh, you're so welcome, Whitney. Thank you very much.
Well, and for everybody watching, next week we are going to have Tammy Lynn Kent on the show. She is the author of the award-winning book, Wild Feminine, and we are going to be talking about the third book in her Wild series called Wild Creative, and she's going to put a whole new light on creativity. And my guess is once we do all of the exercises in Dawn's book, then we will really have a lot of space to be creative and to open up those the possibilities for ourselves. So we'll see you back again next week, same time, same place. And Dawn, again, thank you so much for being with us.